The Free State goldfields, source of most of South Africa's wealth. But the Truth Commission saw the other side of these mining communities this past week. Commissioners heard stories of the mayhem created by gangs, of the brutality committed by police, and of the sadness left by the many exiles who never returned.
Mining is what keeps the wheels of welcome turning. Together with Allen Ridge and Virginia, it forms the second richest gold mining area in the country. The city is young and growing. It is surrounded by rural Free State towns like Brandfort, Odendaalsrus and Kroonstad, traditional farming communities. It's a working class area where the changes that have swept the rest of South Africa have barely shaken long established ways. This week in Welkom, people came to the Truth Commission to speak out the pain caused by the divisions in their part of the world. Patrick Morake and a friend were driving to Bloemfontein when his car was attacked near Brandfort by white Afrikaans-speaking men wearing khaki clothes. He is convinced that the men who shot at him and his friend were Witwolwe.
This occurrence changed my life so drastically. I feel I have this deep hatred for a white person. When I see a white person, especially at night, I have these negative thoughts. And even at work, when a white person speaks to me, I just look at him. I totally distrust them, because during the day they are people and in the evening they are killers. Now when you think, ever since this incident took place, and you have this problematic relationship with white people, did you ever try to get any treatment or some counseling with regard to that? No, I've never thought of getting any treatment, because I feel that where they are the ones who should be getting the treatment.
Abraham and Eliza Mtuze's 10-year-old son Pinda was playing in the street when he was shot by the then mayor of Mahokeng, Caswell Kwekwe, in Kroonstad in 1986. The court later found that nobody could be found responsible for his death.
They discovered that he had been shot 3 times. 2 times just above the heart and 1 just below the heart. I do not understand how a 10-year-old could pose a threat to an armed man.
The Commission also heard of some of the many exiles who left the area during the 1980s.
In 1993, Umkhonto we Sizwe celebrated its 32nd anniversary. The spear of the nation had hit home and would soon be incorporated into a new shield, the South African National Defence Force.
Soon we will be able to honor all our heroines and heroes in the most fitting manner, the adoption of a democratic constitution and the establishment of a government of all the people of our country.
But there were some people at the party who felt MK should do more to honour its fallen heroes. This week, the Truth Commission heard from a number of families whose loved ones died in exile. How did so many sons and daughters of Welkom end their days in places as far from home as Zambia and Angola?
I think from 83 to be exact, you see, we had a strong COSAS branch here. And most of the time, most of the campaigns that were taken national by COSAS, away with prefects, we want democratic SRCs, and all other campaigns that were relevant to make our, conditions better in schools, were taken up very actively in this area.
This school in the township of Tabong was at the heart of student mobilization. In 1986, literally hundreds of young men and women from the goldfields skipped the country. Testimonies at the TRC this week suggest that the flood into exile was caused by the push of the security forces rather than by the pull of the ANC.
We are under a state of emergency. The army moved into our township, you see, and I understand that was the situation nationally. That should have been the major factor why comrades in large numbers left the country, because they could see that if they don't leave now, all of them, they were going to be like some of us, because I think we were about 50 then. people who were detained. And it was good for them because they escaped the torture, they escaped the beatings that went, with detention. Because, you see, it seemed security police were so convinced that we were doing this under the instructions of the ANC.
So the day when he left this place, this country, in fact, it was when my mother sent her to go and pay a phone bill. Unfortunately, he never came back.
The route out was through Lesotho. From there, the UN High Commission for Refugees arranged passage to Zambia, where the 14 to 20-year-olds were welcomed by the ANC. Once in the ANC's transit camps, these youngsters were faced with a choice. They could go to school or to the army. Most of the exodus from Tabong ended up in MK. Joyce Modikeng's brother, Motshedi, was killed in a UNITA ambush in Angola. It wasn't until 1991, once the ANC was unbanned and the exiles were coming home, that the families of those killed during the battles of the 80s were informed of their loved ones' deaths. The fact that the families were told so late and so little has left a bitter taste.
Actually, I was very proud of Moses, and the whole family was proud of him. But now that the ANC has done this to us, especially the MK, I don't think I'll be proud again for that matter. Because we're still hurt inside our hearts. We'll only be proud if you can only see all those bodies being exhumed from Tanzania, from Angola, and be buried here in Welkom or elsewhere around Free State.
Vuyo Charles and Ndoyesile Kamfu grew up in Tabong Township and attended the same school. After being threatened by the police, the two matric pupils left the country in 1986. Ndoyesile's parents never saw him again.
He called me and he said, "Mom, I am in Lesotho." And I said to him, "What are you doing in Lesotho?" He said, "I have no choice. The South African police said they were going to shoot me dead."
They returned the following year as trained MK members, but their families never knew. The first they heard of it was when Jannie Mohape, now the mayor of Bloemfontein, went to them after his release from Robben Island and told them that the children had died 4 years earlier.
Jannie Mohape didn't tell us the circumstances around Ndoyesile's death. That is the reason I'm here. I want the Truth Commission to investigate this matter thoroughly.
Jannie Mohape says that he was travelling with Vuyo Charles after an operation when they saw a roadblock at Brandfort. Vuyo got out of the car, but the police had seen the car slowing down and went after him.
So I presume that he blew himself up with the hand grenade. Although the police were saying they shot a hand grenade in his hand.
They detained Jannie for harbouring a terrorist and he was sent to Robben Island. It was alleged that Ndoyesile was killed in Mohape's house, but he denies this.
At the time of his death, I was awaiting trial, prisoner, in one of the prisons in Bloemfontein. As per report, as I got it, he was shot in a certain house where he was going to make a phone call. He got a phone call that a certain woman is calling him, and then he went there, and he was apparently shot by the police there.
After being notified, Ndoyesile's father went to Bloemfontein, where he found a file and pictures of his son at Park Road police station.
He was naked. I could see his face, and I could see his forehead, which had a bullet hole in it. And I looked at his whole body. It had so many bullet holes, and it was apparent that he had been shot more than 200 times in the body. I asked as to how it happened that he was shot so many times, because it was sufficient for him to be shot only once in the head. And this sergeant said to me, these were not the bullets, but it was a hand grenade that he was having. with him. I told them that I did not know how a hand grenade works, but I believed that I could not recognize him if he was blown up by a hand grenade.
The body had been buried as an unknown person, but Yanni traced it. The bodies of Ndoyisile and Vuyo were exhumed and reburied at the same ceremony.
I took the skull and I had a thorough look at it. And I saw that these were my son's remains because this skull had this bullet hole in it. And I knew his dental formula, and I looked at his mouth and I saw that these were his teeth. And that's how I could identify my son's remains. Why wasn't I told earlier on that my son had died so that I could take my son's body and bury him? Why did they bury him as an unknown male? Where did they get this right? Because I was just nearby. I want the commission to try and find out as to why his death was hidden.
While many young men skipped the country during the 1980s, many others stayed behind. Sipho Motsi was one of hundreds of students from the Welkom area detained by police. But unlike most of his comrades, Sipho never made it home.
Today, Sello Ditebe is the mayor of Odendaalsrus. 11 years ago, he wore chains of an altogether different kind when he and dozens of other student activists were detained here at Odendaalsrus police station. This week, Mayor Ditebe and fellow detainee Patrick Motshedi revisited the cells where they were held in May 1985. It was here that they last saw their friend and comrade, Sipho Motsi.
Sipho and I were actually seen as very close friends. And from time to time, the police would say to us that, if we could get rid of you and Sipho, then everything would settle in Kutanong. Actually, they did not understand that it was actually part of the whole process of the revolution and that not only the two of us were behind that process.
Sipho Motsi had been detained several times before. His mother was almost accustomed to the dead-of-night raids when the security police came to take her son.
They would take him and they would bring him back. But when they bring him back, he would be in a terrible condition. He wouldn't drink water, he wouldn't eat anything that I prepare for him. And he would say to me, his throat is sore. After recovering, he would say to me that they tortured him, asking him what does he want in South Africa. Why is he sticking his finger in the government's ass?
Mayor Motsi says her son was smiling when the police handcuffed him and took him away that last time. Sipho Motsi knew that beating and torture were in store for him. What he couldn't know was that this time the treatment routine.
Now on this day, the 4th of May, it was just after breakfast. I saw Comrade Sipho passing by the door. It was this steel door. The door was still open, but the butler door was closed. Comrade Sipho passed and he greeted me. We used to call each other by names. He used to say I'm malapropism, and I used to call him Mr. No Problem. As I was standing at the door, because we'd been in the cells for quite some time, he passed and he greeted me by the name I've just mentioned, and I greeted him back. And I could see he was handcuffed at the back.
And when the police were taking me from the cell, they said I should come and see what is happening to Sipho.
beneath his chin.
He had his cut beneath the chin. When the time when I was in there, Sithole took the shambok and hit him. Sipho seemed to be the person who was already beaten before I arrived. One of the policemen was a white one, instructed Sipho to stand up. Then he kicked very hard to Sipho. At that time, I asked them not to continue beating him.
I heard him screaming, you see now, and here are the windows that I used to peep through, you see now, to see what is happening. I could hear his voice. I know his voice very, very well. And I looked at those blocks, CID blocks, and then I saw them, you know, moving up and down there, and then I realized that Sipho is in and they are busy with him, brutalizing him there, you see now. And that made me very angry, you see now. I tried to come again to the door, but it was not helping, you see.
And they kicked Sipho then. Then Sithole began to hit him with a shambok. Because Sithole said Sipho was trying to burn his house. When I was still there, then we didn't agree that allegation what Sithole made, that we were trying to burn his house. Then thereafter I was ordered to go out of the cell. I was taken to cell number 3 in that police station. And I believe it's after 2 days that a certain lawyer called Richard Spuho, he was in the firm of Priscilla Jana. Then he asked me as whether do I know that Sipho has died. Then I was affected. Then I said I don't believe that Sipho has died.
Afterwards, police tried to claim that Sipho had died as a result of injuries sustained during an epileptic fit.
And I said to them, you are lying. You assaulted him, you murdered him just after you arrested him. And I'm going to meet you at the court.
But the inquest found that no one was to blame for Motsi's son's death.
I enjoyed my friendship with him a lot. And I believe that if he were alive today, he would actually be one of the most senior leaders in our community.